The best option for BJP and Sri Narendra Damodar Modi is to discontinue the present arrangement of ruling as a coalition. They should consider dissolving the present parliament and recommending election within 6 months. Why do I say so? First of all, on the practical level, it is extremely unlikely that the India alliance is able to cobble together a majority to enable it to form a government, and even if it cobbles together a majority, it won't be able to stay in office for any length of time. And I sincerely hope that the India alliance will not have the foolishness to step into this minefield. It could end up seriously discredited. To really succeed in showcasing its ineffectiveness. The ineffectiveness not necessarily because the leaders comprising it are inefficient, but because the very logic of the circumstance will not enable them to be effective in governance. And this is a time people throughout the country are expecting huge changes, because after all, what the elections of 2024 election have proved is that the people are quite frustrated. Even if they still retain their admiration and respect for Sri Modi, they are seriously disenchanted with the delivery of goods or the delivery of good governance. And what has contributed to this disenchantment is not merely the reality of living or having to live deprived, but also what aggravates it is the fact that great expectations were fanned up in the run-up to the elections going back to 2013-14. The Modi government in 2014 coming into office, giving a world of a promises that were not likely to be fulfilled at all. But people will judge a party or a coalition government on the basis of the promises that they make. Because when you function in the public space, you're required to be responsible and mature, and you should make only those promises that you believe stand somewhere in the vicinity of being fulfilled. If in the eagerness to capture power, you make outlandish promises and thoroughly fail, as you surely will, to fulfill those promises, then the short-term gain will actually prove long-term gain. The promise that was made in connection with demonetization in 2016 ironically applies to the political destiny of Narendra Modi and his party. So there is the ground reality of massive disenchantment, and sometimes disenchantment bordering on anger. And because the mainline media played a subservient and sycophantic role, this reality was not duly reflected in public consciousness and public opinion. And it's likely that Modi and those in power were given or did have some idea about this reality, but they thought that because the media was wholly partisan towards them, and therefore the media suppressed the ground realities, this will not be reflected in the election outcomes. Otherwise, Modi could never have come up with the confident prediction that he will win 400 and more seats this time. So, the India alliance, I'm sure, will not commit the serious blunder of trying to form a government. They simply do not have the mandate. The fact that Modi does not have the mandate, even if he has the numbers, does not by implication mean that they have the mandate. And it would be foolish to think otherwise. Now, as far as BJP is concerned, and as far as Modi in particular is concerned, and even more so concerning the charisma that Modi so carefully and assiduously built up, continuing the present arrangement is suicidal. Let me explain why. Now, if you think of the inauguration of the Ayodhya Ram Temple, it was touted, it was celebrated, it was hailed, it was showcased as a symbol of Hindu self-assertion. That word is very significant. This is not my coinage, it is not my invention. It was the BJP think tank that came up with this idea that the inauguration of the Ayodhya Ram Temple signals the resurgence of Hindu self-assertion. Now, I don't have the slightest hesitation in saying that a community has every right to assert itself to the extent that it can. I'm not in any way disappointed or rendered anxious by the inclination of the majority community to assert itself, especially if it feels convinced that there is a need to assert itself. But the problem is that self-assertion immediately activates a dynamic of its own. And unless you're able to manage it, you'll be caught in the trap yourself. And that, I'm afraid, is happening at the moment. So this national euphoria of an unprecedented majoritarian religion-based self-assertion has been actually dealt a body blow by the people of India in the recently concluded election. Now, if you look at the government that has been formed, surely it's at stark contrast to the euphoria of the temple inauguration. The present government doesn't present a picture of self-assertion, the psychology of assertion, or Hindu revivalism. It presents a picture of political survivalism. Imagine Sri Narendra Modi, the near God figure, the demigod hero of India, having to be propped up by two small regional parties. And you may go on celebrating and singing their importance and all the rest of it, but the people of India will form their own opinions. In their perception as of today, and this perception is quite widespread, Modi is like a giant walking with the help of two small crutches. And that's actually a grotesque image. So the euphoric air of self-assertion and Hindu revivalism is now thoroughly undercut, completely undercut by the present arrangement, the pragmatic arrangement of BJP surviving in and Modi being propped up in the seat of power by two puny regional parties, one of which is headed by a person who is notorious for his flip-flop, Palturam. Now, this is a grotesque image. The common man will see this only as a grotesque image. That's a correct word to be used. Now, you tell me whether this arrangement can do any good to the image of Sri Narendra Modi if he continues with this arrangement. Now, let's look at a practical implication. In the run-up to the election, Sri Narendra Modi said with great confidence and gusto that whatever he has done in the last 10 years is nothing but a trailer to what he intends to do in the next spell of governance from 2024 onwards. What will happen to that grandstanding? Clearly, he won't be able to pursue the mighty things, the dramatic things, the shock and awe things on his agenda. He'll have to maintain a watered-down approach to administration, governance, which is the exact opposite of the majoritarian euphoria he is required to sustain. And when the expectation regarding him is this, that he will sustain this majoritarian euphoria, And what he provides day after day, visually and otherwise, visually and experientially, is mere survival in office propped up by two regional parties. There is a complete mismatch between the promise and the reality. And this is bound to have a very heavy toll on the air of invincibility that Modi conjured up around himself, no doubt aided and abetted by a whole army of forces and a sea of resources, so on and so forth. All that will be squandered, and it doesn't take long for this mountain of an achievement in terms of image building to be dissipated in no time. So each day Sri Narendra Modi continues in office, he is actually squandering the capital that he so assiduously earned over the last 10 years. At least in my mind, there is no doubt about it. Just think of the shift from revival to survival. That will tell you the story of it. That is the reality of it. Now, it may so seem to people that's not holding the, shall I say, the steering of power could be a calamity, because after all, it's true that power has got its own charisma. And if you look at the air of invincibility conjured up, the aura of invincibility conjured up around the person of Modi, it is nothing but the charisma of power. So when a person steps out of the mighty office of the Prime Minister of India, what happens to his personal charisma? And that is the other dilemma. That dilemma is this idea of somebody being superhuman, God or greater than God, will suffer a pinprick if he steps out of the office. So, within the make-believe of the invincibility of Modi, he is under serious compulsion to hold on to the office, but holding on to the office will necessarily result in the dissipation of all the positive energies that he has gathered so assiduously these 10 years. So he is in the catch-22 situation. Should he or shouldn't he? Should he continue or shouldn't he continue? Should he resign or shouldn't he resign? Now this is actually the very painful predicament in which our beloved Prime Minister is. Of course, this is not being talked about because it's politically incorrect even to make a polite mention of it. But it's a reality, and sooner or later people will have to realize this. So, if I have anything to do with the kind of situation that he is handling, my first and immediate action would be to decide that this is not my cup of tea, this is not the game I want to play, and I would let anyone else to have a go at it, knowing that this is a powder keg. In spite of the fact that the leaders of the India alliance are making some sort of calculated noises now and then, believe you me, they are just not going to be foolhardy enough to try and form a government now. And if they do, God help them. Nobody has a clear mandate, absolutely none. But the whole problem is this, as far as the India alliance is concerned. They were surprised and pleasantly surprised that they got this much of a boost from the electorate. And to the extent that they're not able to understand or they're not able to believe that this kind of unexpected reward that they got from the people is genuine and not just a flash in the pan, and therefore, if they have to face the electorate again in quick time, this sense of expectation regarding them would evaporate. And more people will realize that voting for the India alliance is a waste of time because it's a bus ride to nowhere. That conclusion is something that the common man could be arriving at and in my opinion will arrive at. So the India Alliance is also in a quandary. Should they try and form the government? Should they not try and form the government? Now, if they have to form the government, they have to resort to unfair means. They have to buy up MPs. They have to compromise. They have to pay a price. And paying a price in a context like this is seriously harmful to your morale. And the common man in India is not a fool. He is discerning enough to realize that these people have paid a price to capture the seat of power. And from that moment onwards, the electorate in India will look at the India Alliance government, if at all such an unfortunate thing is formed, with eyes of suspicion, as well as suspicion flavored with contempt. It's a real possibility. And to the extent that I know Rahul Gandhi, my reading is that he will resolutely refuse to play this game. He will not do anything which is unethical. He is not crazy for power. He couldn't care less. He has attached his heart to the destiny of India, this I know for sure. He knows he has a legacy to mind. From Jawaharlal Nehru to his father, the dearly beloved father, Rajiv Gandhi. A legacy that his mother did all she could to shore up. And Rahul Gandhi is not going in his time to undermine that legacy. And that legacy is the legacy of political dignity, morality, constitutional morality in playing politics or in doing politics. It's a legacy of practicing politics with principles. It's a legacy of prioritizing the dignity of the nation to the gain of a particular party. And these are subtle things. And Rahul is today wise enough to know that if he tries to tinker with these very subtle things, the consequences could be horrendous over a very long period of time. So, what do I anticipate? Unfortunately, I anticipate a general election within 1 year maximum. And if it happens within the next 7-8 months, I won't be surprised. I don't expect the present government to last more than 1 year. If it does, it can do, but if it does, it will have serious adverse consequences for Modi as a charismatic political leader, and BJP as, according to their claims, a party with a difference, a party with principles. The principles have not been very much in evidence in the way they have conducted themselves so far, particularly after capturing power. Maybe power has its own alchemy that makes people forget their principles and their ideals, even their background, so on and so forth. So, I see no other alternative, frankly speaking. In the meanwhile, Shri Narendra Modi would put up a brave face and his party will keep up appearances as though nothing wrong has happened. It's hunky-dory, everything is business as usual, but deep down there is a turbulence. The RSS is rattled, the RSS is upset, as is very clearly evident from the words of Mohan Bhagwat, who was really articulating as gently and as mildly and as possible, in a kind of refinement that we associate with him, the very intense disenchantment, frustration that the Sangh Parivar cadres from one end of the spectrum to the other are feeling at the present time. Nothing else explains the debacle of BJP in Uttar Pradesh of all places. Uttar Pradesh is the absolute shocker. But that shock is a mere indication, the tip of the iceberg of the mounting frustration of the people of India. And whether it is the India Alliance or the NDA Alliance, both groups will have to pay due attention to the groundswell of disenchantment and popular anger. And how they negotiate this will actually determine what kind of politics comes into play in the immediate future. And for the sake of our country, I sincerely hope that the best would be done under the circumstances, and that political wisdom and long-term vision would have the better of the psychology of immediacy by which people prioritize capturing power to everything else. So there we are. Clearly, if I were in Modi's shoes, thank God I am not, I would not be in the present state at all. Thank you. All the best.